Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. Just two of the boys today, Rusty Ellis, Alex Thacker, you know him, we just call him Thacker. And today, we got our first episode of the year. We're talking about Rainbow Six Extraction, Thacker. I know a game you've been really excited for. So let's go ahead and get right into it. A game that we kind of have mixed thoughts on right now. And I think that that's, putting it mildly, I think there's a lot that this game does well. But I think that there's a lot of issues within this game, Thacker. So let's just get right into it. First of all, the game itself. What were your first impressions of this game?
First impressions of it was interesting because it took what we knew of Rainbow Six Siege and actually brought it into new light. From the beta that we got from actually playing Rainbow Six Siege to now actually having a standalone game, there was a lot that you could tell they put in more effort on certain things. But you could also tell that there are some things that need to be worked on.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I think that the biggest thing with this game is that, well, I think, let's go ahead and talk about the positives first, right? Like, that's the worst thing we can do is just do nothing but shit on the game. And I think that this is a quality game, despite the fact that there are clear and present issues. But the first thing we should talk about, I think, is the gameplay. Because the gameplay itself is a lot of fun. I think that the
Yes.
gunplay itself is tight. I think there's a lot to like about this game. And I think that the gameplay is probably one of the best sources of that because it feels tense, it feels very chaotic. And I think that when you're playing this game, you almost have to be in, okay, I'm taking this shit seriously mode, where you're sitting forward in your chair and everything. Like, you can't be relaxed like the meme is. You can't be relaxed kind of sitting back playing this game. And I like that because I think that not every game has to be relaxing. Not every game has to be, where you're just kind of leisurely laying around, just relaxing and playing. I think this is a game that's very tense, and it works in its favor. I will say one of the interesting things, and I want to hear your opinion on this specifically. It's not fast paced. It's very tense, and normally when you say that about a game, it's fast paced. This one though, the pace is very slow. Do you feel the same way on that?
Yeah, this one feels really slower. So when you come from a lot of zombies for stuff like Call of Duty, whether it be that Left 4 Dead, stuff like that, where it is fast paced, this one brought a new light to it because you actually have to take your time to it. Now, granted, it's not zombies, it's aliens, but still, you have to take your time and actually progress through each mission at a different pace than you normally would on like round 20 of zombies on Kino.
Zombies, aliens, what the fuck is the difference, right? I mean, come on now.
I mean, in this day and age, why not, right?
Exactly. It's not human beings. That's what it is. So, yeah, it's very methodical. I think that's the way I would put it. It's very, very methodical, and there's certainly a sense of dread to it. Like, there's a sense that, I turn this corner, I could very much die. Like, the very next second. And I think that's one thing we can talk about as far as what the game doesn't do great is kind of the idea. The MIA system is very, very frustrating. First of all, because I have a full story, as you know, from the night the game came out that we can talk about, and we will talk about it. But
I think that's my biggest gripe is when we get to that story. That is my biggest gripe of this game.
That's the biggest indictment of the game right there is the story that I will tell. But I think that there's certainly other things to like. Like, first of all, the game runs very well. I haven't experienced many frame rate drops either. I think this game runs well. It's optimized well. I'm playing it on the Series S. Thacker's been playing it on the PS5. Is Kyle playing on? He played it on the Series S when he played it with us, right?
I think he did, yeah.
Yeah, so we've played it kind of on the higher end of the console system. The PS5 and the Xbox Series X are right there by each other. And we've also played it on the lower end with the Series S. And the game runs very well. I think that that's something that can be commended is that the game, in today's day and age where, it was a little over a year ago, we got Cyberpunk 2077 that ran like shit. I mean...
Oh, Lord, we don't discuss that.
No, we still do, because the meme is still very much alive. So,
unfortunately.
Exactly.
If only the game would finally just die.
Exactly. And I think CD Projekt Red thinks the same thing. But I think that's something that you can commend because, again, like I'll give you a more recent example. Battlefield 2042 launched, and it was horrible. It launched in terrible conditions. So I think the fact that
Yeah.
this game, it's not just that it works. That's not the participation trophy I'm giving out. It's that it performs very well. It runs very well, and it looks good. I think that as a Rainbow Six fan, you had to be happy about that, right?
I was happy to actually see it come to light and not flop. To see it actually hit the screen and be fully functional with one or two bugs and not just come to the screen and look like Battlefield. And that just made me extremely proud for how this game runs and the time that they put into this game.
Yeah, it runs well. I mean, it's a pretty smooth 60 FPS you're getting the entire way. And I know that again, over a year into the quote unquote next gen, 60 FPS has kind of become the norm, and especially when you kind of get into a little bit of PC gaming, 60 FPS is the norm. But the game runs well, and it feels like when everything goes right for you on a mission, it feels like the game is fantastic.
And the payout is just lovely as well.
Yeah, the XP, you feel rewarded. You feel very, very rewarded, I think. So I think that that's not really the problem. It's, a lot of games do struggle with that idea of is the challenge rewarding, because there's a lot of games out there, and I know that a lot of people typically criticize From Software games. If you have Rusty mentions From Software on your bingo card, here you go. You can now mark that one down. But but I think that a lot of people look at those games. That's the gold standard of they're difficult, they're challenging, but you feel rewarded when you get to the end of it. You feel very, very accomplished when you get to the end of it. And I think that this game is similar to that, but I think we do need to talk about the challenge a little bit because this game's hard. And
And
I would,
this game was one that really, and I'm going to go back to what I said. You have to take your time with this game
mhm.
because it is that challenge. Even on the easiest difficulty, it's still a full blown challenge. You can't just run in there thinking, oh, it's going to be the same thing that I just did, because every gameplay that you have is different. You have multiple options for the modes, and within those modes, you get different variants of enemies.
Yeah, and I think that they. So let's talk about difficulty then a little bit, because I think that there's a good conversation that could happen about this game when we talk about difficulty. Because the problem that I have with this game, as far as difficulty is concerned, is that it's kind of all over the place. It feels like based on which little sub research missions you get, that pretty much dictates the level. Especially if you're having to, and we'll talk about the MIA system here in a minute, but when you're having to rescue an MIA operator, that is probably the most fair. I'd say that's probably the most balanced that I've seen a research mission. But there are some that are too easy. That are, you have to go to point A, B, and C. You have to activate them in a certain order, and
You
and
have to
that's
kill an
exactly
elite.
killing an
Like,
elite. Yeah, when you have a full 3-person squad, which in this game you should never have an empty spot. That's
never
pretty
don't play
simple.
this with a random is what we're saying. Like, this is a good
Whew.
friend game.
Yeah, do not play this with a random. This game is not like Fortnite. You can play with a random. Call of Duty, you can play with randoms. This,
Now,
absolutely
hey, I
not.
have to say, shout out to the one random we did have. I cannot remember his name, but Rusty and I went down and
Whew.
he picked Rusty up, got him back to evac, went back for me, tried to get me, but I was just too far into the enemy area that he just couldn't. He was there for a good like 10 minutes, and by that time I was like, dude, just leave me. We can MIA it later.
Oh, that dude busted his ass. I loved that dude. He was awesome. Like, and at that point where someone is literally saying like, "Hey, go ahead and leave me," like I feel like that's when, as a random, you know that you did your job.
Yeah, you did
You
everything
did
you possibly could.
exactly. Like when you've got someone random telling you like, "Hey, man, it's all good. I know you're trying. Go ahead and just leave me." I think you did a good job. So this is definitely a game you don't want to play with randoms, but
But every once in a while, you get a good
yeah,
random.
you get lucky. You get lucky eventually. Um, but there are others where it's hold out at this point where you have to stand on a very small area and you have to fight off a bunch of these aliens and infected. You have to fight a bunch of them off, and again, you just kind of get overwhelmed. And
Yeah.
there's almost no easy way to really go about that. There's no way to circumvent that. you more or less kind of have to just bite the bullet and hope that nobody goes down. And as we saw, the moment somebody does go down, it's over. Like
Yeah,
it's
that's game over.
that's game over.
Pick the dude up, go to extraction, forget the mission, get what you can.
Exactly. And it sucks for the person that goes down because if you're not able to pick them back up and you have to evac them as MIA or you have to evac them as injured, they don't get any XP for that, or they get
Not only
very
that,
little.
but then they have to go through and hope for an MIA mission to get their player back, to get their character.
Exactly. And the MIA, while those are tense and they're fun, I can't lie, it's easy to get pissed off when you talk about how, oh my gosh, I just died in this stupid way doing this, trying to finish this mission. Now I have to go back and get that character. And then when I get that character out, I can't even use them because now they're.
Because they have to heal.
Exactly, because they have to heal. So it ends up being kind of this revolving door of operators where you go in, you lose one, you go save them, but now that you've saved them, not only is that one not usable, but the one you used to save them, because you took damage, they're now injured. They have to heal. So just like that, you saved your operator, but at what cost?
But on a positive note of that, though, it does teach players to actually use and utilize every operative that is in the game instead of just finding that one that they like the most, whether it be Sledge from Siege or be one of the newer characters. It allows them to actually experience new characters and new mechanics because every operative in this game has a different mechanic.
No, there's certainly a positive to that. There's certainly a positive to that. And I think that is a good thing, that it forces you to expand a little bit and forces you to use new characters. I just think that also that the healing time, and this is something that maybe they'll patch in, maybe they're just waiting to kind of see how, what the community has to say. Because one thing I'll give Ubisoft credit for, Ubisoft does typically listen to their fan bases. So we'll have to just see if they listen. But I just think that the healing time, it also takes way too long. And it's also incumbent that you complete missions successfully and get that XP. So
you're right. Like Ubisoft does listen to their people. Yeah. Look at Destiny.
Wait, Destiny
still going.
Destiny was
Destiny 2.
That wasn't Ubisoft. Destiny's no, it's not. That's still Bungie. That's still.
Oh.
Come on, Thacker. That's your first oopsie on the podcast. That's all good. Hey, you know what they say? If you're gonna fuck it up, get it out of the way early. So,
if you needed that first oopsie of the year, Thacker just gave it to you on the bingo card.
You know what? It's all good. It's all good because you know what? Now next week when we record Pokemon Legends Arceus, and yes, Matthew, it is pronounced Arceus, not Arceus. Now we know. Now,
get your stuff right.
It's all good. We'll be fine because now next week we can give him shit about this. But anyways, back to Rainbow Six Extraction. I'm leaving.
I already do it. I go next door. And
I'm leaving all of this in. By the way, this is not. I don't care enough to edit this out. but back to it. It just kind of feels like the healing time. If you don't get the XP, it takes forever for people to heal. So here's my question. What do you think happens? And because I'm not just gonna do this to find out. I don't care enough to do this. What do you think happens if all of your operators end up either MIA or injured? Like, are you just SOL at that point?
Ooh.
Like I just thought of that. I just thought of that while we were talking.
I almost want to try it. That's a challenge I almost want to try. But at the same time, I don't want to go through that headache because that's a headache in itself. And I'm sorry. I don't want that fucking headache.
Exactly. Like, I don't. Now, there's part of it. It's like I don't want them. I don't want them to punish me. Like that's the other thing is I don't want them to punish me just because I wanted to do some research.
Anyone who does that, please reach out to us on Twitter and actually let us know how that went.
Yeah, for real. Rusty Ellis _ on Twitter. Thacker, what's your Twitter handle?
Oh snap! I don't even know about.
All right, well look it up real quick while I'm talking, and we'll put it out there just because that way people can shamelessly follow me and you.
Oh, it's only Alex T _10163.
Okay, see, I thought it was something like that. You can follow that. Follow us at Side Mission Pod as well because that's the one Kyle runs because we can't trust him with his own account. But
Johnny Appleseed, for example.
Exactly. So, but there are gonna be people that hear that have no idea what that joke is, and I'm all for it. But but
Eventually they will.
yeah, like that's the biggest thing is I feel like the game punishes you a little bit too much because here's something else that I want patched out if possible. I don't like the idea that if you go down once, you can either pick yourself up or somebody else can pick you up. But if you go down twice, you're MIA.
Well,
I don't like that personally.
here's
That's just
one
me.
thing that I feel like they've done well with, at least. If you go down, if you're able to get picked back up, you're able to get picked back up. But the first time you go down, the enemies kind of just leave you alone. The second time, that's when the enemies actually start paying attention to you. Like, hey, you're down. We're going to punish you for being down and make it harder for you to get back up because you're being that weakest link of your team. So it's an interesting standpoint that they've made into the game, but at the same time, it's super fucking annoying.
Yeah, and that's my thing is that it's really more of an annoyance because I feel like in you look at like Call of Duty Zombies or you look at even like Back for Blood, which just came out last year. Uh, like they don't punish you like that. Your teammates can still pick you up, and I just feel like that's fair. Like have them still pick you up. Like you're not going against other players. Going against other players, that's one thing. But going
Yeah.
against AI, I just don't see the reason for it to be like that. That's just me personally. So I don't like that. But outside of that, I will say I think that as far as like combat with enemies, I feel like that's pretty fairly balanced. Like I don't feel OP as one of the operators, and I don't feel like the enemies are just bullet sponges. At least from what we've played, I don't feel like that's a huge issue. What do you think about that?
On bullet sponging, um, honestly, I haven't experienced much of it because you can easily see with every enemy they did it a little bit too easy for you
Yeah.
at some points because they pretty much make the weak points a whole nother color. Like for I cannot remember the actual name of them, so I'm just gonna call them clickers. If you play the game, you'll understand what I'm talking about. They look like giant ticks.
Exactly.
Um, but if you shoot the back of them, they either explode or spew out gas, and you only have to shoot them once. For most of the like grunts, you shoot them in the head once they go down, and then you get into the mutations where it does kind of feel like there's some bullet sponging, but at the same time, they still have those weak points. It might not take one shot, but you have one that looks, and I'm gonna hate myself for putting this out there. It looks like the Demogorgon from Stranger Things
Okay.
because it literally just its head opens up and it gives you the opportunity to shoot it in the head a couple times and it goes down easily because that's its weak point.
Okay. Yeah, I think I know what you're talking about. Actually, yeah. Okay, that makes sense. I will say I don't think that like the enemies in this game have the balancing issue that like the enemies in Back for Blood had. That felt borderline unfair at some points, especially if you look at like the multiplayer. That was
The
borderline
big arms
unfair.
and everything, like
Yes, like the exploders. Like me and Kyle talked about it when we reviewed Back for Blood, the Back for Blood alpha, beta, whatever it was called, and we said that the exploders were just fucking cancer. Like
yeah.
there's no other way to describe it. Like they were just terrible because
And
everybody
the
would
big
run
arms
that.
were awful as well because
Yeah,
you would have the normal ones where you could easily see the weak point, but then you'd have an armored one where you have to knock off like 3 layers of armor, then get to the weak point. And by that time, they've hit at least 3 of you. One of you is at least down.
exactly. So that's the big issue there is that it feels like for the most part, enemies are pretty balanced. And it feels like the
For
operators are pretty
sure.
balanced. I will say that like the balancing in the game is good, but again, for me, a lot of it goes to just the mission structure too. Is that one mission, the first area, because for those who don't know how the game works, the way it works is that you go into an area. There's three
You
different
have
zones. You try to go
yeah,
deeper into the zone, and the deeper you get, and the more you're able to finish objective wise, the more XP you get. And it's to the point where like we finished one all the way through, and we got like almost 10 grand in XP, which was massive.
and
But
that's the thing with the XP. They're not only considering like what you get done because when you get the first one done, it's 1,000. Second one, 15. Third one, I think they bumped it up to 25.
yeah,
But
something like that.
you get that experience, and then you also get experience of how well you did. So you get your health, objectives, and kills
Yeah.
or tacticals. It's not objectives; it's tacticals. So, like, what all you're using? Are you just using one gun? Are you using your smoke grenades? That kind of stuff. They're actually giving you experience for utilizing every tool you have.
And then you also have to factor in the experience bonus for completing the extraction.
And how many people you have alive. If one person goes down completely MIA, you're only getting 60%
Yeah.
bonus. Whereas if all three of you finish the entire mode, you finish it completely, you're getting a 90% bonus.
Which is massive when you're
So
talking about
you're
how much you're getting back.
exactly, you're practically doubling the experience you're getting as long as all three of you are still alive.
So that I feel like again, like the rewarding isn't the problem. The problem is in the structure because one, it's completely random. It's completely
Yeah,
random. So
like your game modes are always different. You're never going to have
exactly.
the same ones. I know I hated the fact that this happened. Rusty, Kyle, and I were playing one game. I went down completely, MIA,
And then I think I went down as
and
well, didn't I? I think because is this the same game you're talking about?
yeah, you and I both went down actually.
Yep, I remember that.
We both went down. Kyle went ahead and extracted because that was the only thing he could do. He couldn't get us both, but he went ahead and extracted. We were sitting there, we're like, son of a bitch, we're gonna have to go back and get our operatives. So
Mm-hmm.
we went back, and the first game mode we played, it had detonation, one of the sit there and protect the objective, and then the third one was MIA, and we literally were like, "There's no way we're gonna get it." We
Yep.
tried it. We got through the first one. The second one, we went down. One person went down, and we were like, "Yep, nope, this is it. We're going. We're extracting now." Literally, I go pick up whoever went down. I think it was Kyle who went down that time.
I think so.
Picked him up, took him to exfil. Rusty covered my back, got him there. We extracted. Kyle didn't have that operative anymore, but the experience and the health that we did get back, I was able to run heals the next time we go around. And the next mode that we played, MIA was the first one.
Yes, I
So
remember
we
that.
literally jumped in, and it was ironically both mine and Rusty's MIA operative that we needed to get back. And we got them back, got out of there, and said, "Yep, we're good. Let's run it back."
Yep. Like it's in those moments where you have that the luck kind of breaks in your favor, the randomness breaks in your favor. It's in those moments that I feel like the game works really well. And the problem is that again, just with RNG, it doesn't always go your way. So I remember one time, one of the things we had was we had the elite first, we had nest tracking second, and we were like, okay, wow, we can complete this and be fine. The third thing we had was stand in this area and defend it. And I remember all three of us groaning and being like, we're never going to finish this because someone's going to go down because of how hard it is. And we got to, I think, halfway through that objective, and I think I went down. And I remember saying when one of y'all picked me up, "Fuck this objective, let's extract. I
Yep.
will, I
And
will,
then
I will, I'll sacrifice that."
Kyle and I said, fuck it. We said, okay, we're going to extract. We got Rusty up, took him to the extraction point. The second we got him in the bay, Kyle went down.
Mm-hmm.
And the biggest issue, or the biggest thanks that I have for this, not really an issue, biggest thanks is you're able to run a self revive kit. You're able to run those things even if you're not a healer.
Yep.
So I went to go get Kyle up. I went down. And at this point, we were thinking, well, that's it. We're going to have to get all these operatives back. I hit that self revive, got up. Kyle still had some time, so I knocked off enemies, closed the door, shielded up one of the windows, got Kyle up, and we extracted the hell out of there.
Like there's moments where this game is great, I think, but those moments it feels sometimes they're a little bit too few and far between. So before we
Oh,
go,
and there are moments where it just makes you want to sit there for 5 minutes and hate your life.
that's what part of it playing his game felt like the story I'll go ahead and tell. Like the first night it came out when I I can't believe this
And this
happened.
wasn't even your fault.
I can't believe this happened still. So we're playing a game with a random, and as we're going to extract, I go to hit to hold X to extract, because I was again I'm on Xbox, and the servers disconnect me because in
Mm-hmm.
2022 for some reason we still are not launching games with the proper server strength for these issues to not crop up. And I don't get that. And if you're a game developer, please listen. I just want the game to fucking run and for it to not crash the first day I play it. That's
And it's
all
not
I
like the
want.
game launched with terrible reviews. Like the
It
game
yeah.
did really good at launch.
Yeah, it did. But for this to happen, and then so I go to try to get back into the game real quick to still try to get the XP, and I am not able to get in, and the game pops up an error message and it says you have been assessed a 5-minute penalty for
For
abandoning the game. And I said, I didn't abandon it though. You disconnected me. The servers, I got disconnected by the servers, and the game punished me. And I remember for 5 minutes, my buddy Cody was in the party with us too. I was pissed and I was furious. And at that moment, with a person that's
and shout out for Cody for getting all those vocab words done.
yeah, Cody was doing vocab for school. Like, I think that a person with less patience than me would have uninstalled the game.
I.e. me.
Yeah, like I think that a person with less patience would have uninstalled the game. They're lucky I have patience because I sat there through that 5 minutes and played on, but that's not good. The last thing I want to talk about before we like kind of talk about where we think this game will be ultimately when we look at this year, kind of in review. There a lot of the reviews said this, and I agree with this. Until I see that they constantly update this game doesn't have a lot of staying power, in my opinion. It doesn't have a lot of
Unfortunately.
relevance beyond the first 10 to 15 hours of playing. It feels very much like a game that you'll play, but when bigger games in February, such as Horizon Forbidden West and Elden
Dying
Ring,
Light
Dying Light
2.
2, when those come out, I don't feel like this game is going to have that kind of staying power, and I think that's a problem.
Yeah, especially because you got to think about it. First things first, Xbox did something right and wrong with this game by making it free to play day one. It's a right move because it's a great marketing point on Xbox, but it's also the wrong move because I feel like that's where the servers really got cloudy.
Yep.
But at the same time, when you do that, you then give it free until you take it down. So with that, you're going to have to now make that game compete even harder to stay with these big games coming out. You have Arceus, which just came out yesterday. Midnight release Thursday, if you were lucky, Rusty. um, but then you also have, in a week, you have Dying Light 2 coming out. A week after that, you have not Elden Ring, Horizon coming out.
And then you
Then you
have
have
Elden
Elden
Ring.
Ring. Like you have these huge games coming out just in the shortest month of the year. Which, guys, if you work a part-time job as your standalone job and you only make minimum wage, best of luck to you because I know it's not going to be financially easy for you.
It's not going to be easy for those of us that are full time. Shit, I mean,
Oh, trust me, I have the collector's and the Regala edition of Horizon.
Jesus.
That's $460 right there without tax, y'all.
Oh my god. Okay, well, yeah. I
But
think
yeah,
that
like
the way that we can look at this game is I think this is a good game. It's a quality game, especially if you're on Xbox. It's a quality game for Game Pass. But is it worth that $40? I don't know. I personally I think I wouldn't pay it. Thacker, you actually did pay that. What do you
I
think?
actually did, and after your punishment, 5 minutes, I was even sitting there saying, I feel like this game wasn't worth it. I should have just downloaded it on Xbox. But then thinking about it, that was day one of release. I didn't give it the opportunity. I didn't give it the time. So the next 2, 3 game sessions that we had on it, I was like, you know what? In the back of my head, I was thinking, nah, this is a game that I actually enjoy. I want to keep it. I
Yeah.
jumped conclusions way too fast. And the bonuses that you get from getting the deluxe edition like I did, it was worth it because you get a 10% discount on the in-game store, which is nothing more than cosmetics, but still 10% helps out some.
I agree. I think that there's positives. I think if you're a big fan of Rainbow Six, this game is quality. You got to go in with the right expectations, and I think that the staying power isn't there. I think there are issues. Hopefully, these issues get resolved in patches, and hopefully, Ubisoft has a content plan, to continuously update the game. But that's just a hope right now, and we can't plan for that right now. For me personally, I don't think this game is really going to go very far as you look at a way too early look at our top 10 for 2022. I don't know that this game will be there. It might be, but it'll be on the lower end of it. But that's Rainbow Six Extraction. It's a quality game that has some issues. If you can get past those issues, I'm sure you can have a really, really good time with it. But he's Alex Thacker. I'm Rusty Ellis. This has been Side Mission. Thanks for listening.